Babylon, and they want to know, how'd you guys get rid of the Assyrians so fast? And they want to know, how'd you get healed so fast? And Hezekiah tells them a story, and then he shows them around the palace. Okay, because that's what you do, right? When visitors come, you show them your place. So he says, well, here's how the Assyrians died, and here's how I got healed. And he shows them around the palace, and he shows them everything in the palace. And verse 13 of 2 Kings 20 says, there was nothing in his palace for all his kingdom that Hezekiah did not show him. And Isaiah shows up and he says, so what those men saying, where they come from? Hezekiah says, well, they came from Babylon, and they saw everything in my palace, and I showed them everything. And then verse 16, Isaiah says to Hezekiah, here's the word of the Lord, the time will surely come when everything in your palace and all your predecessors have stored up until this day will be carried off to Babylon. Nothing will be left, says the Lord, and some of your descendants will also be taken away and become eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon. Well, the word of the Lord you have spoken is good, Hezekiah replied, because he thought, well, there'll be peace and security in my lifetime anyway. So he's like, well, okay, at least it won't happen until after I die. But the whole point is, instead of saying to these guys, this is what the Lord has done for me, he showed them all the stuff he had. And said, well, wait a minute. You're not supposed to show them all the stuff you have. You're supposed to tell them what God has done for you. You're supposed to bear witness to the love and mercy and might of the Lord that you've served your whole reign, and now all of a sudden these guys just show up and you blow it. And Hezekiah's like, so, there's not a great punishment or anything to Hezekiah, but, the Lord had already had in mind that that the kingdom of Judah was going to come to an end eventually. And it does. They get carried off into Babylon. And we find them, that's the book of Daniel, Jeremiah and Daniel and so forth. But they get carried off to Babylon. So, is it possible that these guys from Babylon were there to say, is there anything worth us taking, worth invading this place? Yeah, there's plenty for us to take here. So they might have been. But at the same time, it's like, Hezekiah, what he should have done was to say, this is what the Lord has done for me, now you guys can go home. And tell your master, the Lord is the Lord of this place. And what he did to the Assyrians, he could certainly do to the Babylonians. So put that in your pipe and smoke. But suddenly he got arrogant. Okay. And then the summary, verse 33 of 2 Chronicles, Hezekiah rested with his ancestors. All Judah and the people of Jerusalem honored him when he died, and Manasseh his son succeeded him as king. Manasseh was almost the worst. Okay. Hezekiah was the best since David. Manasseh was almost the worst. In fact, Isaiah, there's no indication that Isaiah had any prophetic ministry during Manasseh's time. There is a tradition, if you will, that Isaiah was actually executed by Manasseh because he didn't want him around. So that's the story of Hezekiah, and it appears, in some respects, it appears from the story of Hezekiah that Isaiah may not necessarily have been like what was Isaiah's role in relationship to Hezekiah? Maybe not so much the prophet on retainer. I almost want to say he's almost like a Billy Graham to Hezekiah. Billy Graham sometimes would show up at the White House with presidents. And some of them appreciated that very much, and some of them even invited him. And I kind of get the impression that if you think of Isaiah in that kind of role, a preacher to the people of Judah, and sometimes, he'd show up in the palace and advise Hezekiah, and Hezekiah would appreciate Okay, how are we doing? Besides out of time. All right, all of that is laying the foundation for, not next week, but the week after that, when we'll actually read more of what is in Isaiah. Although,